Hello, everybody. I'm Parsha Becky, and we are back for another amazing week of Parsha. Now, as I'm sure you recall, last week we had Simchat Torah, and we finished reading the entire Torah, which means this week we are back to starting from the beginning. We are in the very first book of the Torah, which is called Bereishit. And Bereishit means at the start, and we are at the start of the whole Torah. Now, the first Parsha in the book of Bereishit, of course, shares the name with the book. So we are also reading the Parsha of Bereishit. We're at the start of the whole Torah. We are at the start of the entire world. When the Parsha starts, there isn't even a world yet. There's just a big chaotic mess. And Hashem says, okay, time to clean up this mess, time to turn it into a world. I want to create the world now. And Hashem says, first of all, it's really dark in here. Who turned off the lights? I don't know, but I'm going to turn them back on. I want light. And just like that, there is light everywhere. And Hashem says, that's amazing. I like light. We're going to keep the light and the dark separate from each other. When there's light, we'll call it daytime. When there's dark, we'll call it nighttime. That's a pretty good one day. And that was day one. The next day, Hashem's like, okay, there's light so we can see now, but all I see is a great big mess. There's water on the top, there's water on the bottom, there's water all around, there's water everywhere. It's disorganized. It's ridiculous. So Hashem says, I'm going to separate this up, clean up the water that's up from the water that's down, the water that's all around. It's gonna be no more. We're gonna move some water up, some water down, no more water in the middle. And do we really want water on the ceiling? That seems like an accident waiting to happen. So Hashem says, okay, now the water on the top is no longer going to be water. It's going to be sky. It'd still be blue. It's sky now, though. Sky on the top, water on the bottom. That's day two. Next day, Hashem says, okay, we've sorted out the water on the top, water on the bottom thing. Now we've got sky on the top, water on the bottom, but the water on the bottom is all over the place. It's still such a mess. We can't do anything with water everywhere. So Hashem gathers the water on the bottom into a few set places, and Hashem's like, okay, where the water is gathered, we'll call that an ocean. Everywhere else, we get dry land. Now that's good, Hashem says, but I'm not done yet, because now that we've got dry land and the earth isn't filled up with water, Hashem says we can fill the earth with something else. So grass starts to grow up from the earth, and trees and flowers and plants. And Hashem makes all kinds of nice plants grow up from the earth. And that is day three. The next day, Hashem says, okay, now we've got light and we've got dark, but right now it's totally random. Nobody knows when it's going to be daytime, when it's going to be nighttime. It's light, is it dark? Who knows? There's no schedule. That's so disorganized. We can never plan anything. We never know when it's going to be another day. So Hashem says, I'm going to make some lights in the sky to help us sort all that out. Hashem makes a big light. So I was like, I'll make this really big light called the sun. That will be out during the daytime. And I'll make some smaller lights called the moon and the stars, and they'll be out during nighttime. Sun's out, it's daytime. Moon and stars are out, it's nighttime. And Hashem says, that's not all. Because now that we have a sun, moon, and stars, we can have a whole calendar. The sun, the moon, and the stars are going to help us invent days and years and months and holidays, because now we've got a whole system. The sun and the moon have this regular system. We'll know when it's time to go into the next day, when it's time to go into the next month, the next year, and so on. Now we can really have a calendar and a schedule. That was a pretty good day four. Next day, Hashem says, okay, so I know I've separated the water and the sky, but like they're both kind of empty, and I want to fill them up. So Hashem fills up the water with fish and other kinds of underwater animals. And Hashem fills up the sky with birds and other flying animals. And Hashem tells the fish and the birds, I hope you guys spread out, have a good time, fill up the water, fill up the sky. And that was day five. Next day, Hashem says, okay, we've got fish in the water, we've got birds in the sky. What's missing? I want some land animals. So Hashem makes all kinds of animals to walk around the land, walk and crawl and jump and hop, all sorts of land animals. Hashem's like, okay, that's good, but I'm not done, because I have some image in mind. There's a particular picture that I really, really want to turn into reality. I know exactly what I want it to look like. I want to create a human being. So Hashem makes a human being, and Hashem's like, yes, that is exactly what I wanted to make. That's what I'm talking about. And Hashem says, hey, human being, I'm really proud that I made you. So you get to be the boss of all those fish and birds and land animals. You're in charge. You can go wherever you want, enjoy the earth, eat whatever plants you want. And that is day six. Next day, for day 7, Hashem's like, you know what? I had a really good week of making things, and I actually think I'm pretty much done. Today is a good day to rest, and I'm gonna make this day special and holy, and I will call it Shabbat. And when we rest on Shabbat, we are being just like Hashem who rested on Shabbat. So, that day passes, time moves on. Hashem's like, okay, back to work. I'm going to make a garden. Hashem makes a garden near a place called Eden. There's 4 rivers around the garden. The garden is right in between all 4 rivers. And Hashem picks up the human being and plops the human being down inside the garden. And Hashem says, okay, you get to live in this garden. I want you to take care of it and do some gardening. And you can eat any fruits you find in the garden except that tree over there, the tree of knowing good and evil. I don't want you to eat from that tree. Because once you eat from that tree, you can't live forever. You're gonna eventually die. Who wants that? And also you'll know about good and evil, and just don't eat from that tree. Anything else you want, eat, just not that tree. So the human's hanging around in the garden, having a good time, but the human's getting kind of lonely. And Hashem sees that, and Hashem's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry that you're lonely. I don't want people to be lonely. That seems sad. I want to help you out." So Hashem brings over animals to the human, and Hashem's like, "Hey, you want to play with this animal?" The human's like, "Ooh, that's a good animal. I'll call that a squirrel." And Hashem brings another animal over to the human. Hashem's like, "You want to play with this animal?" And the human's like, "That's a cool animal. I'm going to call that a duckling." And Hashem brings another animal over to the human. Hashem's like, "You like this animal?" And the human's like, "That's a cool animal. I'm going to call that a tarantula." And so on. Hashem's bringing animals over. They're having a good time. The human's naming animals. But at the end of the day, the human is still really lonely. And Hashem's like, "Okay, I get it. Animals are fun. But the only thing to help a human being stop being lonely is another human being." So Hashem helps the human fall asleep. And while the human is asleep, Hashem splits the human being up into 2 people. First, there was one human being, and all of a sudden, there's 2 people. One's a man, one's a woman. And the man wakes up and he's like, "Whoa, we used to be like the same person, but now Hashem made you out of my own body. That is so cool. I'm going to call you Isha. I'm going to call you a woman because I'm a man, and we're almost the same, but we're not exactly the same. We're very similar, but we're a little bit different. So there'll be a different word for you than for me." And the man and the woman, they get along great. They become best friends. They get married. They're very happy in the garden. They're hanging out in the garden, sometimes together, sometimes apart. Now, there's also a snake in this garden. The snake is very, very clever. The snake is also kind of sneaky and a bit of a troublemaker. And one time the snake goes over to the woman. The snake's like, "Okay, so I heard that God said you can't eat any of the fruits in this garden. What's the deal with that? Isn't it kind of rude of God to put you in a garden and not let you eat anything?" And the woman's like, "No, no, 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 you got it wrong. We are allowed to eat the fruits here, except for that fruit from the tree of knowing good and evil over there. That's the only one we can't eat." And the snake's like, "Or what?" And she's like, "Well, apparently we'll die or something." And the snake's like, "Oh, what? You'll die if you touch the tree? Look, I'm touching the tree. I'm touching the tree. Nothing bad's happening to me. I'm touching the tree. I'm touching the tree." And the woman's like, The snake's like, I bet nothing bad will happen to you, even if you eat the fruit." And the snake's like, "You know what? I bet God's lying to you. I bet Hashem is such a big liar. Hashem is probably just scared because I bet if you eat that fruit, it will make you as powerful as Hashem. And Hashem just wants to hoard all the power because Hashem's greedy and a liar." Now, of course, we know that none of these things are true. The snake is obviously the liar here, but it's pretty convincing. The woman's like, The snake takes a fruit over from the tree, and the snake's like, "Check out this fruit. Can you smell that? Can you smell how amazing it is? Don't you want to try some of this juicy, delicious, rich, succulent fruit?" The woman's watching the snake talk up the fruit, and she's like, "Oh, that does sound good." And the snake's like, "Come on. One bite. What's it gonna do? Nothing bad's gonna happen if you just take one teensy tiny little bite from this fruit. Come on." And the woman's like, "Okay." And she takes a bite from the fruit and she's like, "Oh, that was a good fruit." And she's like, "I want to be a good friend. I'll share." So she takes the fruit over to her husband, to the man. She's like, "You gotta try this fruit." And he takes a bite. He's like, "Oh, that is a good fruit." And then Hashem's like, "Hey, human beings, what's shaking?" And they're like, "Oh my God, quick, hide, hide, hide." And they run and hide. And Hashem's like, "Are you hiding from me? You know that I'm Hashem, right? I can see everything. I can see you. Why are you hiding?" And the man's like, "Oh, I just realized that we're not wearing any clothes and it's very embarrassing for us to be naked. So we're hiding because of that." And Hashem's like, "Who even taught you the word naked? Who told you that that's something embarrassing? You were never embarrassed before. Did you by any chance eat the fruit of knowing good and evil that I told you not to eat?" And the man points to the woman. He's like, she started it. She made me eat it. It's her fault. Don't blame me. Blame her. And the woman points to the snake, and she's like, it's not my fault. The snake started it. The snake gave me the fruit. Blame the snake. And Hashem's like, okay, first of all, you're all in charge of your own choices. You can't go pointing fingers and blaming other people. Take responsibility for your own actions. Now, all three of you made bad choices, and you're going to get consequences. First of all, Hashem says, snake. Yes, they made their own choice to eat the fruit, but it was wrong of you to go to try to trick them into eating it. So you don't get to walk around wherever you please anymore. From now on, snakes are going to have to crawl around on the ground in the dust and the dirt. And you know what else Hashem says? Since this whole problem started from you being so buddy-buddy with the woman and chatting her up and getting her to taste that fruit, you're not going to be friends with human beings anymore, snake. From now on, whenever people see snakes, they're like, ah, gross, a snake! And they're going to try to step on you or something. And now as for you, Hashem says to the woman, yes, the snake shouldn't have tried to trick you into it, but you made your own bad choice in eating the fruit, and you made a second bad choice in convincing your husband to also eat the fruit. So, I get that you want kids, you like kids, you can still want kids and like kids, but it's going to be very painful to have kids from now on. True story, apparently it's very painful to have kids. Who knew? And as for you, Hashem says to the men, I gave you a garden full of fruits for free that you could eat whenever you wanted. And instead of just accepting the garden full of free food that I gave you, you had to eat the one thing that I told you not to eat. So, you know what, Hashem says, from now on, you're not getting food for free like that. You're going to have to move out of this garden. You're going to have to get a job and work for a living. And it's not going to be easy either, Hashem says, because I'm going to curse the earth a little bit to make it extra hard for you to grow food from. So you're going to have to work really, really hard to grow food from the earth for you and your family to eat. And Hashem kicks them out of the garden, although Hashem gives them some clothes as a goodbye present. He's like, well, since you think it's so embarrassing to not be wearing clothes, have some clothes. I made these for you. But then Hashem makes them move out of the garden and sticks a fiery flaming sword in front of the entrance to the garden so that nobody can sneak back in. And the man turns to the woman. He's like, listen, so I sometimes go by the name Adam, which means human being. It's only fair if you get another name too. So I will call you Chava, which means living, because you're going to be the mother of every living human being after us. That's just what logic dictates for the only humans right now. So Adam and Chava, they move out and they have two kids. They name their kids Cain and Hevel. And Cain and Hevel grow up, and Cain becomes a farmer, and Hevel becomes a shepherd. He watches sheep. Now, one day, Hevel has a cool idea. Hevel's like, I'm going to give a present to Hashem. I'm going to give some sheep as a sacrifice to Hashem, but I'm going to make sure I do it right. And he goes through all his sheep. He's like, I need to find the very best of these sheep. I need to find the tip-top A+ grade A sheep. I want to get the nicest possible sheep for Hashem. And Hevel works really hard. He finds the best sheep. He's like, Hashem, these are the best sheep I could find. They're for you. And Cain sees this. Cain's like, oh, hey, giving presents to Hashem. That's a fun idea. And he grabs some vegetables. He's like, here, Hashem, have some vegetables. Now, I don't know about you. If you think about it, though, if you had to choose between getting something as a present, either something that's the very, very best of what it is or something that's okay, what would you want? Most people will want the thing that's the very, very best, not the thing that's just okay. And Hashem feels the same way. Hashem really appreciates the gift of Hevel's very, very best sheep. Hashem's like, oh, thanks, Hevel. These are some really nice sheep. I can tell they're your best sheep that you worked really hard on. And Hashem does not pay attention to Cain's random vegetables that are just okay. Now, Cain feels very hurt and upset about this. And Cain is very sad. And Hashem sees that. And Hashem says, hey, Cain, I'm very sorry that you're sad. I don't want you to feel bad. But you know what Hashem says to Cain? It's okay. If you have a growth mindset and if you keep working hard on it and keep trying and keep working on your vegetables, you're going to get better and better vegetables. You're going to be able to make a really nice present to Hashem that Hashem will want. But if you just sit here obsessing over the one thing that went wrong, you're going to end up making a bad choice. Remember, Cain, Hashem says, if you, things don't always turn out the way we want them on our first try, and that's okay. That's why we're able to keep trying. Just keep trying, Cain. Don't obsess over one thing that went wrong. Just keep trying and it will be okay. But Cain does not take this good advice, and Cain does just sit there obsessing over the one thing that went wrong. Cain's like, oh, yeah, sure, Hashem likes Hevel's present better than mine. I guess Hashem likes Hevel better than me.
Maybe everyone likes Hevel better than me. Why does everybody like Hevel better than me? Hevel thinks he's so much better than everyone else. I bet Hevel thinks he's better than me. Why does everyone like Hevel and not me? It's not fair. And Kain's getting all worked up. And the next time he sees Hevel, Kain's like still all mad. He's like, hey, Hevel, what's the big idea? And he starts a fight, and Kain and Hevel are fighting, and they're fighting. They're getting kind of rough, and Hevel dies. And this has never happened before in the entire history of the world. There have been 4 human beings, and up until this point, they have all been alive. Like, he didn't even know this was a thing that could happen. And he's like, oh my God, Hevel's not alive anymore. And he's like, God, like, he tries to like bury Hevel and like hide what happened. He's like, I'm gonna be in big trouble. Like, I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't know this could happen, but oh my God, I've done something terrible. And Hashem says, hey, Cain, where's Hevel at? And Kain's like, well, how should I know? Like, I'm not the boss of him. I'm not Hevel's babysitter. Like, do you expect me to know where my brother is every single minute of the day, Hashem? And Hashem's like, Cain, I'm Hashem. I know everything. I know that you accidentally killed Hevel. Your brother is dead, and you are trying to lie to me about it. And Hashem says, now, Cain, I know this was not on purpose. I know that you didn't know that could happen, but you clearly made a bad choice. You should not have started that fight. You should not have let it get out of hand. And you definitely shouldn't have tried to lie to me about it afterwards. Now, you have to accept the consequences for your actions, Cain. This was very bad. You're not going to get to be a farmer anymore. You don't get to live here anymore, Cain. Hashem says, from now on, you are going to wander from place to place to place to place for the rest of your life. You will never have a home. You will never get to settle in one place. You will always have to keep moving. And Cain says, this is too hard for me, Hashem. I'm scared. Cain says, I know that what I did was wrong, and if I could take it back, I would, and I know I can't, and I'm ready to accept the consequences for what I did to Hevel, but if I have to go from place to place to place to place, Cain says, then wherever I go, people are going to know what I did, and people are going to be mad at me, and people are going to try to hurt me. They might even try to kill me, Hashem, and I'm scared. I don't want that to happen. And Hashem says, you know what, Cain, you're right. I don't want to be unfair to you. You made a bad choice, but it's not fair for me to let anyone else hurt you because of that. You've got your punishment and your consequence, and that should be it. So Hashem says, I will make a sign saying that no one is allowed to hurt Cain. If anyone kills Cain, they will get punished 7 times as much as Cain was. So Hashem makes a sign saying no one's allowed to hurt Cain, and Cain accepts his consequence, and he wanders from place to place to place to place for the rest of his life. And meanwhile, Adam and Chava, their parents, they have a 3rd kid, and they name him Shet, which means another kid, because, hey, he's another kid. And the Parsha gives a family tree of Shet's kids and their 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 kids, all the way down to a guy named Noah. And around this point in time, Hashem's like, first of all, I've been watching this family tree, and people are living for ridiculously long times. They're living for like hundreds and hundreds of years. And you know what? That's kind of silly. That's too long. So let's set like 120 as the normal number of years for a person to live, like more or less, but like 120 is a really good number. Fun fact, remember who lived for exactly 120 years according to the Parsha we read last week? That's right, it's Moshe. Anyway, he's not in this Parsha. He won't be born for a while. So Hashem's like, okay, you know what? People should live for around 120 years. That's a good number. But Hashem also notices by the time we've gotten to the end of this family tree, we're like generations later, Hashem's like, you know what? People are being really bad. Like the people around at that time, they're making bad choices. They're hurting each other. They are being awful. And Hashem's like, you know what? I almost wish I never created people. They're just really bad now. And Hashem says, you know what? Maybe I should just destroy the entire world. Maybe that's a good idea. Oh, except, Hashem says, except this guy Noah. Noah's a good guy. I like Noah, but everyone else deserves to be destroyed. And to find out if Hashem goes through with this plan of destroying the world, you're going to have to stay tuned for next week's Parsha. Shabbat Shalom.